Hi, everybody. Welcome to the post-game show. Final score, the Browns lose whatever the hell the score was. What was the score? 31-28. Doesn't make any difference anyway. Um, this is not going to be a long post-game show because I, for the second year in a row, am calling it quits. Should I just end this? I mean, is this really worthwhile? I mean, here's a classic example of an organization that just trips over its own feet. I mean, take a look at the game and say, but geez, we outplayed them in the second half. But it doesn't matter if you outplay them, because if your defense does well, then your offense will turn it over a gazillion times, or they'll drop 8 passes, or I mean, it just doesn't make any damn bit of difference. There's no way to get ahead. You're constantly starting young quarterbacks who are not aware of what they're supposed to do. And the ticket price just goes up, remains the same, goes up, remains the same, goes up. And they keep making money, and there's just absolutely no pressure to bear on the organization to put out a better product. And I mean, by now, Jimmy Haslam should have been accosted in public. Instead, he's disappeared. He's become as much of a hermit as Randy Lerner. I mean, we don't see or hear from him. He's probably hiding in Tennessee somewhere. It doesn't appear that anybody really cares. And then I look at Hugh Jackson. Is Hugh Jackson really trying to win? And this is the scary part of the Hugh Jackson story is I think the answer to the question is yes, he's just so fucking ignorant that it doesn't make any difference. That's my belief. I mean, let's just use a number of examples, okay? And we'll start at the end of the game. All right, look, you're not going to score a touchdown in 29 seconds, okay? But when your punt returner refuses to return the punt, and the announcer is saying, why isn't he returning the punt? It's because Hugh Jackson made him take knees the week before. We went over this. They've preached fear into this young man, and so as the crop is cultivated, so comes the yield. And so now he is afraid and unwilling to return anything because the coaching staff told him he has to play safe. Next, so you have 29 seconds, and what do? You throw a 5-yard pass over the middle. Now, is it me, or is it that we have ignoramuses surrounding the organization? All right. We obviously have low Wonderlic people who are offensive coordinators and quarterbacks on this team, because any moron would figure out with 29 seconds left and no timeouts, you have to go down the field. And I know there's not going to be anything great there, but hey, a tipped ball could happen. It could happen. But not when you throw the ball 5 yards over the middle. No. And then, of course, there's the Ricardo Lewis thing. I don't know how many women, children, and cattle he has to rape before he's thrown out of the village. It's a mystery to me how a person who literally drops everything that's thrown to him and commits penalties. Now, if you saw his great blocking downfield, he doesn't even understand the rules of the game. Yet he gets all these snaps, and we saw Casey Williams draw pass interference. We never saw Jordan Leslie again. And this is really what it comes down to. It's my time. It's your money. It's our money because we're watching this on DirecTV on the Sunday Ticket. And we're powerless to do anything about it. And they obviously don't know how to win. The leadership is such that they can't win, and it's such that they never will. All right, the people who are at the top of this pyramid are bad news, is rotten from the core. Nothing is going to change in Cleveland as far as the Cleveland Browns is concerned. And you can sit there and say, well, for this period of time, we actually outplayed this team. But you see what happens. It's always just enough to lose. 0-16, 1-15. It's always just enough to lose. And if the defense plays well, the offense won't score. If the offense scores, the defense gives up a ton of points. If they have to stop the run. They don't stop the run. It's just mystifying to me. It's just totally mystifying, and it's hopeless. I can't at this point. Like, I was at halftime, I was beside myself because really was, the first half was like Melanie Griffith doing Shakespeare. I mean, it's like something you just don't want to watch. The second half, the Colts took their foot off the gas pedal because they're a lousy football team, let's be honest. And we gave up 31 points to a lousy football team. And our quarterback can't throw straight. And it's like everything else, the fatal flaw, usually the fatal flaw for the Browns quarterback is either they're old and washed up and dinged up, or they have weak arm. There's one Jeff Garcia disease, Charlie Fry disease, the guy who just underthrows everything. But now we have the wild gunslinger who has no control where it's going. And don't ask him to become more accurate, because if a pitcher can't throw strikes, unless he's willing to invest so much time and effort into changing his mechanics. But I'll be honest with you. I have never seen an NFL quarterback come into the league out of college who was an inaccurate passer, who became an accurate passer in the less time that they're allowed to throw the ball in the NFL. At this point, DeShone Kizer is a bust. Okay, he shouldn't be starting. He shouldn't be playing. We said this before the season began. He's simply not ready. But, I highly doubt that he'd ever be ready. He's got a strong arm, but he has no idea where the ball's going. The frustration of playing for a lousy team and throwing to receivers who can't catch the ball is frustrating enough in and of itself. I think the misread with Cason Williams was definitely on Kizer, because that Hugh would have been in Cason Williams' face just to show a lesser player up. But instead, when Kizer came off the field, Hugh Jackson was immediately asking him, what did you do out there? Another rollout pass where he threw the ball. All he had to do was throw it out of bounds, and he threw it right into a linebacker's hands. The linebacker dropped it. He's just going to turn the ball over incessantly. He's going to throw a ton of interceptions, and and every one of his misthrows gets picked. Here's another thing. All you have to do is throw the ball up in the air, and your receivers will catch it. Not the Browns, anyone who the Browns are playing. Look at the reception that sealed the win for the Steelers in week one. And, the one Antonio Brown caught when there were 3 Browns standing around picking their ass. And then take a look at this one where Moncrief had 2 men on him. And once again, it was McCourty with his back turned because he doesn't know how to defend a pass. And a second defender, and the ball's like 3-4 yards underthrown. And our 2 men drift right by the ball, and Moncrief goes up and catches it. And there's a reason for this. And it's because our defensive secondary has no technique. Stop and think, they teach you in the major leagues, and I'm going to compare this to baseball because the Indians are winning, and people like Bradley Zimmer with limited experience know how to do this, is that when you're going after a fly ball, they always tell you to take the line, much like a free safety should, Jabril Peppers, and take the line to the ball. And you don't want to be adjusting and drifting. You want to get your feet to where the ball's going to be. And the idea is not, unless you absolutely have to catch the ball on the run, the idea in baseball is if you're an infielder drifting back on a pop fly, you don't keep drifting back. You get literally behind the ball, and then with your feet in place, you make the catch. So it's feet first, catch second. And so it is in the world of being a defensive back, is that the technique is that you turn and maintain your ability to keep your eye on the ball. If the ball is underthrown, 2 things can happen. If a second defender, a safety, is closing in, he can take an angle to the ball, seeing that it's underthrown. Or at the very least, you go up and you tip the ball if you're a McCourty and, you're looking back. The problem, our guys are facing this way and they're not looking at the ball. The receiver is turning back and adjusting to the ball that's underthrown, and we're drifting right past it. Just like instead of feet first, catch second, we just keep drifting right out of the frame, and the receiver comes back and gets the pass. We saw this in this game a couple of times as well, with really bad out patterns that we allowed Brissett to complete simply because we're backpedaling. We're giving too much of a cushion, but and Jamar Taylor is probably the primary example of this, he has no technique whatsoever. He gets turned around the wrong way. You saw that happen a number of times in the course of the game in the first half when T.Y. Hilton was burning him, just turning the wrong way. There isn't the technique that is necessary to stop the forward pass in the Browns secondary. Now, is that something that's coached? Yeah, but the problem is McCourty's a veteran. And why do they all do this when they come to Cleveland? Well, the reason is that's how they end up in Cleveland. They're not very good anymore. And it makes you understand now why Joe Hayden was traded for nothing, because he's better than what we have, and we'd rather have shit on the field to feed our fans than even declining stars. We'd just rather have pure shit, people who were never stars who are old. We love to put 30-year-old men on the field and let them stumble around like drunken bums rather than allowing a guy who is slipping and declining, who has been a good player. We just get people who were never good players, and they're old and they're washed up. That's how we end up with Jim Leonard. That's how we end up with people like that. Who go on to become college coaches in the next year. It's because we love those end of the line types of players. Team's never going to win, folks. And I suppose anything is humanly possible, and their opponent could play a game like the Ravens played against the Browns in the Browns home stadium. They could win one game, but winning is not about winning one game. Winning is obviously about having a chance to really win week to week, and this team has no chance. They have no performers. It's hard to believe that Hugh Jackson can continue to look at Ricardo Lewis and look at him as a starting receiver. It seems just preposterous to me that the Browns receivers, because they can't get away from their men, are consistently committing offensive pass interferences and pushing off to get open because they just don't have the ability to separate. Everything is very clear. And it should be eminently clear that the organization failed once again by not getting wide receivers onto the roster. And I think every fan deserves a refund for their entire season tickets because the organization didn't put any players on the field. That's really what it comes down to. And it doesn't matter about Isaiah Crowell and whether he can run or he can't run. There is no ability to run when you're down 28-7. Anyway, it makes no difference. The Browns can't win. They'll never run the football. The quarterback will always be forced to throw way too much. The quarterback will always be throwing into double coverages with bad receivers. The ball will always bounce off the hands of wide receivers into the hands of the defense. Kenny Britt will continue to play along with Ricardo Lewis, and they will continue to fail. They don't catch a goddamn thing. Not a goddamn thing. And Britt, when he catches a touchdown pass, well, whoop-de-doo, it was an ill-advised throw that honestly could just as easily have ended up a pick six because nobody was on that side of the field. The ball was underthrown, and it just so happened that Melvin was trying to tackle Britt because he was in single coverage over there. But you don't throw the ball across the field, across your body like that. I mean, so the one time out of 10 he gets rewarded for making an ill-advised throw only encourages him to continue to make bad mechanical errors that will result in pick sixes. And of course, we had our 12-minute section of the game where we just gave up, and we gave up 28 points, and the game was over. And it's just the team can't overcome any amount of of disaster. They have no resistance to mistakes, and the mistakes breed more mistakes. The answer to this isn't in stats. The answer is, you draft quarterbacks in the third round and you get flawed stuff. It's kind of like going to a bakery and insisting on buying day-old goods and then complaining that it's all stale and doesn't taste good when you get it home. When you pass on players like Carson Wentz or people of that ilk, and you don't get a quarterback until you settle for Cody Kessler, or and you're in third round quarterback draft hell. There's a reason why Deshaun Kaiser didn't go higher. It's because he's inaccurate. He's the Paul Shuey of NFL quarterbacks. He can throw the ball really hard, but he doesn't know where it's going, and he has a real penchant for consistently throwing the ball behind his receivers. That is the one that is most likely to be intercepted in the NFL, because the windows are so small that there's likely to be two men to pick off that pass instead of just one. He's not finding open men down the field. I saw several wide angles in which men were running open down the field. He doesn't have good vision, and that is something that isn't going to change, folks, any more than the accuracy is going to change. I wish I had better news. I wish, and I'm not going to get mad like I did at half again, because now I know what to expect from this team, and that's nothing. Nothing at all. And that every Sunday now is a waste of my time, and it's a waste of your time. I would urge all Cleveland fans to boycott the organization and to give up. Having a football team is a good thing, Northeast Ohio. You don't have a football team. I don't know what it is you've got. You've got a money-making machine that loses. And, if you want to be the Philadelphia 76ers and keep drafting Johannes Embiid and waiting for him to get healthy and then telling the fans every year, he's not able to go again this year. If that's what you want, you keep supporting them. And it has nothing to do with players kneeling on the field. And it's not against any kind of political belief objections or anything like that. The team's just bad. They don't deserve to be supported by fans who are willing to go there and would be thrilled if they were just competitive. I mean, let me put it to you this way, in my limited experience, that, we played a competitive game against the Steelers and lost, and the Steelers just lost. They're not that good either. And obviously the Ravens are not that good. And we know that the Colts aren't very good. And now we know the Browns are the worst team in football, okay? Because the teams that we thought, like the Jets and all, that were worst, no, they've won already this week. We are the worst team in football. Make no mistake about that. And, from week to week, there is no improvement, and there will not be improvement, because everybody knows what the weaknesses and deficiencies of the team are. I don't know. I mean, this is where I was at last year, and I bowed out, and I said, but it's not entertaining to watch this. It is not constructive. It is not mentally healthy, and the coaches will be fired again. And, Hugh Jackson will be gone, and should be, because I don't know what plays he's calling. I mean, 5-yard pass, or Deshaun Kaiser's a fucking moron. It's like, got 29 seconds, heave the ball down the field, son. I don't think that takes much coaching. Here's another one. It's like, okay, they're coming up and rushing up to the line of scrimmage on a 4th and 2. They're not going to go for it. They're trying to get you to jump off sides. It's the old Bill Belichick trick, and the Browns fall for it. They're not being coached up. Nobody is paying attention to the details. Nobody is telling anyone, what to do. They're young, they're inexperienced, and the people on the sidelines are not helping in any meaningful way. It's amateur hour. It's like watching the old Gene Carroll show on Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, WEWS TV5. If you're my age, you remember the Gene Carroll show. It was on the air before Polka Varieties was every Sunday at noon on WEWS TV. And you watch bad baton twirlers, bad singers, whatever. This falls right into the category every Sunday. And like I was saying, 630 people watched this post-game show after the Steelers game because there was hope. Not that they won the game or anything. There was no celebration, but at least there was hope. At least the fans could pretend for a moment that we were competitive in a professional football team and that maybe better days lay ahead. That number went down to 324 after the Ravens game. Okay? 50% loss of fans because the interest is lost at this point because we played a miserable game. Well, now we've lost to a team that nobody even thinks is any good, who doesn't even have their starting quarterback. And the difference is T.Y. Hilton, they had some receivers who could get out in the patterns. That's the difference. And our ability to shoot our own foot off. That's it. That's the reason the Colts won. And that's the reason every team will beat Cleveland, because Cleveland will shoot its foot off every week. And I'm sure that this week there will be about 100 to 110 viewers, and that will go down. And that's where it settles at, is about 100 viewers for the people who are basically, just like the people who are still supporting Donald Trump at this point in time. They are the 30% range of fans who cannot be persuaded to give up the ghost, even though they complain about it all the time, but they're not going to admit that they're wrong and give up permanently. But those fans who are the real fans, or the people who are just waiting for a competitive team to come out of this franchise, they're gone. And I'm one of those people. I want the team to succeed. I want the organization to succeed. I wouldn't bring these shows back if I didn't want them to succeed. And I don't come on here just to bitch and kvetch about all of this. It certainly doesn't make my blood pressure do great things watching this every Sunday. I could be out on the Swamp Rabbit Trail here in the beautiful foothills of South Carolina, riding my bike. I could be doing lots of things, playing tennis, getting sun, enjoying myself in the fresh air. And this is the commitment that I chose to make. And there's no commitment from the organization. They won't even play players who don't fuck up. They'll just keep playing guys who fuck up week after week after week. People who have proven that they're not up to the job. Inconsequential, irrelevant, unnecessary. All these things describe the Cleveland Browns organization. And I feel badly for fans because I know you want more. But look, you got 1 year left of the Cavaliers, and I know how disappointing the Kyrie thing is, but you don't really want him in town because he's a knucklehead, and I think he suffers from depression, and I also think that his father, Drederick, is the most cancerous thing, along with, LeVar Ball. We're talking about sick father disease, but the Cavs at least will have the goodness of LeBron for one more year, and they gave you the last 3 brilliant years. And the Cleveland Indians are playing brilliant baseball this season, and you got that. And I know some of you are just football fans and you don't care, but broaden your palate here, acquire some new tastes in your sports cuisine. Give yourself an opportunity to fall in love with a team that is actually overachieving, Take a look at the Indians, because they're playing smart baseball right now. They're taking extra bases. They're hustling. Their defense is great. Their head's in the game. They're professional. I don't agree with everything that Tito Francona does. I'm pissed off about Clevenger being left off of the starting rotation so that idiot Tomlin can pitch. I think it's a bad move. I'm tired of the veteran thinking. For a guy who throws 87 miles an hour and gives up more gopher balls than anybody on the Indian staff. But you really can't get too hard on Tito looking at the results the last couple of years. So give yourself a chance. Drop your blood pressure a little. Allow yourself to win a couple of times instead of just showing up once a week and losing and losing and losing and finding a new way to lose every week. It's my best advice. And if you do fall in love with the Indians and you started enjoying the run of the Indians in the postseason, then you can watch this on the weekend and maybe it means a lot less to you. Maybe at that point it's like, well, but gosh, we're just around the corner from NBA season and man, we got one more year of LeBron and holy moly, we can show our appreciation to the greatest player who ever played in the NBA. We can show him what he's meant to Northeast Ohio. And yeah, on Sunday, we'll still watch the Browns, but we'll be looking forward to watching the Cavaliers. I guess that's how we have to look at it. There's no analysis to this, just what I wanted to get off my chest. I appreciate everybody tuning in and supporting this postgame show. And you know something? It's heartwarming to know that this many people are willing to watch a Browns postgame show that is void of advertising, that is void of ass licking and boot licking within the organization, a show that speaks its mind, that is truly more of a fan's voice, that is thinking more what's in your head than the stupidity we have to get with Mary Kay Cabbagehead and all the knuckleheads who sit here and give Hugh Jackson and this whole team a free pass. I personally appreciate you taking the time to tune into this program because that's in the end what makes it worthwhile. It should be the team that makes it worthwhile, folks. It should be what the Browns do on the field that makes it worthwhile. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's you who makes it worthwhile by tuning in, and I thank you for that. Be back again tomorrow for the aftermath. If there's anything I can add to this, maybe I'll be talking about another Indians win. Let's hope. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Sorry the game didn't end up better. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastorheads. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.